So after dabbling in wizards and multiple forms of reality inside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Scott Derrickson has returned to his horror roots to bring us an adaptation of a 2004 short story called The Black Phone. The movie debuted last year at Fantastic Fest and was supposed to release last year, but they pushed it until summer of 2022. Was the wait worth it? You're goddamn right it was. What's up guys, and welcome to my review of The Black Phone. This was my most anticipated horror film of the year. I thought that the trailer looked awesome, although I only watched the first half because it became clear this was going to show way too much. I was chomping at the bit to see this thing last year after watching the first half of that trailer, and when it got delayed, it was one of the more crushing delays that I've experienced in this post-COVID world. But I finally got a chance to check it out a week early at an AMC event, drove 2.5 hours to Jacksonville, Florida just to check out this movie and then drive home and do my review. And let me tell you guys, it was worth every single mile. So starting off with the positives for The Black Phone, I just thought that the story that this movie told was awesome. I'm not somebody that read the short story that this was based off of. I can only assume that everything that they added, everything that they did to adapt this into a full-length movie only helped that story, because there was so much to unpack in this movie that I was not expecting. The trailer sells you on this supernatural concept of this kid that's kidnapped by Ethan Hawke's character, put in this basement, and he's able to communicate with the previous victims of the grabber with this black phone. And so all of these dead kids are trying to give him information that they discovered while they were trying to escape, to try to give him a fighting chance to not have the same dark fate that they did.
Don't hang up.
Who are you?
You know all our names?
And that concept in and of itself would have been fine for just a small, tight little bottled horror film concept, but there's a lot more of a character study going on inside of The Black Phone, to where the first 30 minutes or so is really just getting you into these kids' lives, the main character of Finney as well as his sister Gwen, and showing you the trials and tribulations of their life in the 70s, their turmoil with their alcoholic father, and the bullying that they go through, and people that they consider friends, people that they don't consider friends, and it sets up these little arcs, especially with Finney, the main character, to where throughout the rest of the film, when he's undergoing this very horrific scenario, he's got something that he's building towards as a character. Very easily, you could have just had it be simple and say, okay, this is an innocent kid put in this situation, and that's really all the motivation that we would have needed to root for this kid. But they pack so much more into him as a character, to where his triumph over the evil is actually tied into this big character arc that he has, this big character growth that he has, that makes the potential victory of his situation so much more meaningful and so much more impactful by the end. And so I always enjoy when I get the concept that I was sold in the trailer, but there was so many more things beneath the surface of the movie that I was not expecting. It makes it such more of a richer experience. And it helps that we have great characters in this movie. It's not a ton of people. There's a very small cast here. You've got Finney, you've got his sister Gwen, and of course you've got the grabber played by Ethan Hawke, and a few small characters that dabble here and there. But for the most part, it's just those main three, and all three of them are great characters, and the performances all across the board are outstanding. Like Ethan Hawke, I was already sold in the trailer, and I'm already a big Ethan Hawke fan, but his character of the grabber, to me, is instantly iconic here. He just has so many different layers of evil to him. He's weird, he's uncomfortable, he's gross, he's oddly charming in some weird ways, he's creepy, he's intimidating and disturbing. He pretty much has the full spectrum of fucked up covered with this character, and you never really know what to expect from him. Every single scene that he pops up in, you never really know what layer he is going to bring to this character, what new dark direction he's going to take things, and every single time that he was on screen, you could tell that Hawke was just having an awesome time bringing this character to life, because he fully disappears into the role of the grabber.
I made you some breakfast.
What'd you put in that?
Salt and pepper.
And let's be honest, those masks that he's wearing, that's going to be a Halloween mask at some point. There's parts in the movie where the face plates change from like a smile to a frown, and you got the devil horns in spots of it. There's times where he's only wearing the bottom and not the top. And aside from just looking cool and looking really creepy, it also kind of adds another layer of weirdness to where I think he's trying to like convey his inner emotions in the scene that he's actually in, depending on what version of the mask that he's wearing. It's very cool and creative. Mason Thames is really good as the protagonist of the movie Finney. He's got more of a subdued performance when stacked up to somebody like Ethan Hawke, but because they spent the time to really build out his character and build out where he needs to grow and show all the difficulties that he endures in just everyday life situations, they get rid of that suspension of disbelief issue with having kids in this very adult situation. You believe and you buy into him being smart enough and him being enough of a survivor to come up with these different things to try to get out of this situation. But dare I say that the standout of the movie was actually Madeline McGraw as Gwen, the sister of Finney. This character was awesome. There was so many moments to where she gets these lines and the delivery of the young actress literally brought my entire theater to laughter at least 2 or 3 times. She had the best, most standout scenes in the movie. Her attitude, her personality, her line delivery, and even when she's not trying to be funny, but there's like this dramatic and emotional side to her character throughout certain scenes, mostly regarding her father, she is a really good kid actress. Both of them are. Like, Scott Derrickson found 2 of the better kid actors that I've seen in a very long time, and I love the brother and sister dynamic that they both have, because even though they're separated for most of the runtime of the movie, you still feel this bond between them that's driving them both. And so it's one of the better brother and sister elements that I've ever seen. I always like it when a director starts to have a bit of a signature style or some calling cards that lets you know that this is their film. And I think that Derrickson is starting to have that, because there's a lot of visual styles that he uses in this, a lot of techniques that are very similar to what he used in Sinister. The Super 8, like ultra grainy, old school video style, he uses in this movie to show like some dream sequences, some premonitions. It's very much the same exact visual style that he used for like the snuff films in Sinister. The way that the spirits of these dead kids look, very similar to the way that the spirits of the dead kids looked in Sinister. And so they're not the same universe, they're not the same movie in any way, shape, or form, but he's starting to have this very distinct style as a horror director to where you're going to be able at some point to look at a film that he directs and within a couple of minutes be like, oh, this is a Scott Derrickson film. And finally, being that this film takes place in the 70s, it's got a great soundtrack, and I really like the style and the charm that that era brings to this story. Whenever a director can capture the era that they're going for beyond just having a few outfits or maybe a car or two from those years, I think it adds a lot of a cool factor to the movie. When you see the kids flipping through the channels and watching Emergency and all these old shows, and of course, since we're on this old rotary phone for the entire struggle of this movie, it just adds a little bit of a coolness to it for me. Moving on to the mixed aspects, the sister Gwen has this fever dream clairvoyance thing going on, and it was shown in the trailers to where she sleeps and has these dreams about black balloons or the black van or eventually getting these tiny little breadcrumb clues about where her brother might be throughout the runtime of the film. And while I love the fact that they give this character something to do once her brother is kidnapped, because I love giving this character more screen time, I liked seeing her more, and she would have been pretty much deleted from the movie past the first half hour if she didn't have something to keep her relevant to the plot, I don't feel like the clairvoyance thing was necessary in the movie. There's already this supernatural edge to what is going on in a very grounded storyline with these dead kids communicating with the latest victim. When you add premonitions and psychic powers and stuff, to me it just stretched it maybe a little bit too far. And now moving on to the negatives. The main disappointment for me was that this film was not scary whatsoever. Now, keep in mind, I could probably count on one hand how many films have actually scared me, but I thought there was going to be a little bit more of a creep factor, a little bit more on edge feeling by the trailer of this movie, and after seeing it, I would almost hesitate to even call it a horror film. It's much more of kind of a thrill ride with a more of a horrific setting. There's some creepy scenes. Certainly Ethan Hawke, as I've already said, is a very creepy character. There's some jump scares throughout, but it wasn't a movie that I felt terrified or I felt this sense of horror to. It was just this thrilling situation.
You're getting out of here.
How?
There's a combination lock.
What's the combination?
I had a pretty big logic issue with something that happens in the film regarding Ethan Hawke's character. As I've already said, he wears a lot of variations of these masks, and there's a point in the story where he gets part of his mask knocked off, and he freaks out like he can't be seen without his mask. It like does something psychological to him. But earlier in the film, twice, they show him without his mask, and he's just fine. And so it just felt weird. It felt out of character. It felt sudden. And certainly in the scene that it happens, it felt overly convenient just to kind of make events make sense within the script. And so when it happened, it just confused me. And after driving 2.5 hours home thinking about it, it still doesn't make any sense to me. And my final negative is regarding the character arc of Gwen. There is this disconnect that she has with her father regarding her little clairvoyant fever dreams. And it's basically the biggest struggle that she has throughout the movie. And I felt like they didn't pay that off enough. They didn't really give you the scene that you needed to feel like that was resolved among those two characters, or that Gwen as a character came to her full character arc by the end of the film. But overall, guys, I really enjoyed The Black Phone. It mostly met my expectations. In some ways, it surpassed them. I think it's going to be one of the standout horror or thriller movies of the year. One of the better and one of the more iconic performances by Ethan Hawke that I think we're going to be talking about for quite a long time. And I encourage everybody to go and check this thing out as soon as you are able to. Well, that's it for me on this one, guys. If you enjoyed this review, please click over here and check out my playlist of all of my other 2022 new release reviews. And I'm also going to put my review of Scott Derrickson's previous horror film, Sinister. Please like and share this video and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything in the future. Thank you for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.